All right, KNES 415. How you doing? Today we're going to take it nice and easy and try to apply a lot of our 310 concepts, individual joint motions, and we're going to try to put them together to see what they do as a team. So if you recall from 310, I talked about how individual joints, elbows, wrists, knees, are like players on, I'm just using this as an analogy, you use a lot of analogy, a football team, right? And each individual player is responsible for a certain job, and each individual player has certain responsibilities, things they can and can't do. Like linemen can't necessarily just run down the field if they want to, right? There are rules based on those positions. Same things with joints. There are certain things the fingers can do, and there are certain things the wrist can do, and there's certain things the elbow, the radial ulna, you get the point, okay? Today's lecture is going to be how those different players come together to run plays. Functionally, how do joints, and of course we're inferring the muscles that influence the joint motion, but how do the joints come together for different strategies of movements? And those strategies of movements are for activities of daily living, sport, exercise, for kids, play, for adults to be able to, again, activities of daily living, to be able to cook, clean, wash. There are certain concepts involved in these strategies that fall under a continuum based on what the strategy calls for and based on your experience level doing the strategies. So what I want you to, a couple points to plant some seeds. My sons, as of this video, 10 and 13 and a half. And my oldest son is on the spectrum. He has sensory processing, and he's also dyslexic. My youngest son's dyslexic too. They really struggle with tying their shoes. And if you think about it, to us, we kind of take it for granted, but there is a lot of dexterity that goes with, you got to learn to tie your shoes. Nobody just watches a YouTube video and tying your shoes in and just, right? Like roping the cow feet. So a lot of things that we do in our activities of daily living, we kind of take for granted, but they were learned. It took us time to learn how to do those things. I mean, even something as simple as feeding ourselves, when you're a baby, mom, the little airplane, open up. And then when you're a kid, you're just like, hey, applesauce. It's going all over the place. And it's okay because they're learning. But when my kids were younger, man, they got more food on themselves than they did in their mouths, right? That's normal. My point is that a lot of these movement patterns are just that. It takes a lot of practice, and we just don't give it the credit because we're just used to doing them. And listen, it's not just you, it's me too. Sometimes I need to stop and remember I had to learn how to put my shoes on. I had to learn how to eat. I had to learn how to drive. Good Lord, when I was learning how to drive in high school, anything over like 40 miles an hour, I felt like I was a bat out of Hades, man. You get desensitized to it and you learn it, okay? So let's remember that all of these things are learned. And so I just wanted to set that up. And again, in sport and exercise, you imagine going in a skating rink for the first time. You're not going to be smooth and left and right. I mean, you're going to kind of be more, you're going to be slower. You're going to incorporate a movement strategy that's going to probably be safer for you not to fall down. You're not going to take as many risks. In other words, when you go on a skating rink for the first time, you're not going to try to go as fast as you can. Just keep in mind that as you get better at things, your movement patterns are going to adapt and evolve accordingly. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to talk upon, I'm going to show you a couple graphs, and then we're going to get into the meat and the potatoes. This is a force velocity graph. The easiest way to explain this graph is by, first of all, putting max and max, meaning that this graph is meant to show the relationship when your muscles are giving maximum effort and your intrinsic muscle force working at maximum effort, but your extrinsic load, that's what the force is. So velocity is the velocity of your movements. Be very clear. Now, this is a relationship we can apply to cars and other things too, but for this class, this is the velocity of how fast can I flex my elbow. So fast elbow flexion would be over here. Slow elbow flexion would be over here. Why? Because this is 0. And think about revving your engine and you're at a red light and you take off and you start to increase your velocity. That sounds like a motorcycle. You're on a motorcycle. Your velocity increases and then you get to a stop sign and then you got to slow down and you go back to 0 at the stop sign of the red light, okay? This is effort because of an external resistance. So this is like if I'm trying to flex my elbows as fast as I can, okay? Flex my elbows as fast as I can. The velocity of my elbow flexion is going to be super fast when the load that I'm flexing against is super low. You kind of get that inverse relationship. So in other words, if I don't have any load other than the mass of my arm, I can flex my elbow super fast, okay? So no load, I can flex real fast. But as I start to add load, now what do you mean by adding load? Let's imagine I put a 5-pound weight in my hand. I added load, I added resistance. I still might be able to flex my elbow fast, but it's probably not going to be as fast. And definitely if I replace the 5 with a 10, it won't be as fast. And if I replace the 10 with a 15, it won't be as fast. And 15 with a 20, now again, I'm trying to flex it as fast as I can, but the more load, the less velocity, okay? Load velocity. Another way to look at it is, in practical terms, is if I have, for my personal trainers, let's say you are working with an athlete and they are, 300 pounds, and you try to run as fast as you can. You do a 40-yard dash with them. And so they run as fast as they can, but they have a very heavy load, right? They have a lot of resistance with all that extra weight. They drop weight, and I'm not talking like you could replace it, but the point is you drop excess weight, the kind of weight that's not making you go fast. You decrease the load, you're going to increase the velocity for a maximum effort, okay? So again, this isn't talking about submax stuff. This isn't saying, well, technically, if I'm flexing my elbow as fast as I can with 30 pounds, I could flex that same speed with no weight. Yeah, and you're not going maximal effort. So this is just to show the relationship of maximum effort. There's a relationship between load and velocity. Okay. Now, this is what I really wanted to show you. Oh, if you're given another extreme that's going to help you understand this concept. Let's say you're doing a max bench press, right? Most of us have maybe done a max bench press. For me, it's been many a moon ago. But a max bench press, you're not going to move that load very fast. If it's your max, it's going to go very slow. High load is going to be moved putt, slow. Less load, really less load, is going to be moved fast, veet. So think about doing a max until maybe there's an amount of weight you can't move. If there's a load that you can't move, that's when you get to here, There's a load so high that I literally can't move it. Okay? So load velocity. Now, a couple of equations. One equation in particular that we need to I'm not going to ask you to solve for x, but it's the definition of work. And work is load and movement. How far did you move it? So if I have the bench press and all I did was strain and I didn't move it anywhere, technically I didn't do any mechanical work. Now, I clarified this in 310. You're still doing physiological work. You know, you could still get fatigued because inside your muscles, there's still things moving. Okay, so you could have physiological work, physiological power inside the muscles. But in terms of extrinsically mechanical work of actual movement, okay, so work is how far did you move this external load? And speed has nothing to do with it. Just get it done. You move something from A to B, you did work. You changed it. It wasn't going to move on its own. You changed it. You did work. Power is how fast did you do that work? How much time did it take you to do that work? Another analogy of how this concept works is if two people were running the 40-yard dash and work was synonymous with distance. I know it's not, but just for this analogy, right? Because they have something in common, distance, right? Work, though, is how far did you move something? Distance is literally just how far. But let's use this as an analogy. Two people were talking about running the 40-yard dash. And all they did was talk about distance. Then most everybody would tie because, hey, how'd you do in the 40-yard dash? Dude, awesome. I finished it. Went all 40 yards. No problem at all. So you could see where the issue is, right? Well, that's great, but how much time did it take you to finish the 40? Oh, how much time? Well, I finished it in 5 seconds. Distance on the top of the equation, time on the bottom. The lower the number on the denominator, the greater the overall resultant. And we know, guys, we know a lot more physics than we give our credit for. We understand that variations in time is going to infer variations in speed, because if two people ran the 40-yard dash, one runs it in 5 seconds, the other runs it in 4.5 seconds, you know, because you know more physics than you give credit for, that the one who ran it in 4.5 seconds was moving faster. They had more speed. We don't report 40-yard times in speed. You know why? Because everybody's moving the same distance. Everybody has the same top number. So variations in the bottom number infers variations in the entire equation, which distance in regard to time is speed. So the same thing with power. Okay, the concept of power is time related. It's speed related. If two people displace a resistance the same, in other words, two people do the same work. Let's say it's how fast can you move 220 pounds, 225, let's say two 45-pound plates. How fast can you take that 45-pound plate from point A to point B? Dr. Clemens did some research on this, not with 225, but it was just the concept of same resistance, variable time. So work over time, how much time did it take you to do the work, is power. That's what power really means. Now, power is used fast and loose all the time. You know, oh, they got speed and power and speed and power. But what power really is how much time did it take you to do the work? So what that really means is that power has a force resistance component to it, and it has a speed component to it. The definition of power is work in regard to time, and it takes force to do work. How much time? So a practical example of this is if you had two people that weighed the same, they had the same resistance in terms of their mass, and they ran the 40-yard dash, and one of them ran it in less time than the other, then that person would be more powerful because they went from A to B in less time. Now, if they don't weigh the same, well, then you have to calculate the equations. But if they're the same weight and one runs in less time, you can infer that that person is more powerful just from a simple equation. If they both have the same top and there's variations in the bottom, then the variations in power changes. The fun part about power is that it incorporates some of this and some of that, but you can't go too much of an extreme, because if you go more force, if you go more here, it's at the detriment of velocity. So you're going to go slow. And if you go way over here, you're going to be fast, but you won't have a lot of force. So you won't be able to move heavy things with significant speed. So what's cool is, I'm going to show you in the next graph, that power, well, it says it here, but I'm going to show you in the next graph, power lies in between. It's a beautiful balance of not too much of this and not too much of that. Moving heavy things fast to optimize power lies somewhere in the middle. I'll give you a classic example of this. When I was an athletic trainer back in the day here at UL, this is where I started. I was in the athletic training program here, and that's how I paid for my graduate school for my master's and my doctorate, is through athletic training. Coach Stokely had a tradition. On the last day of practice, the seniors would get to pick any underclassmen to payao, to pale. They get a running start. Now, the underclassmen would have like a little foam pad, but it was over their face, so they couldn't, the scary part was anticipating the hit, right? So you couldn't see them coming. And everybody would line up. It was like a gauntlet. It was really cool, man. Everybody's cheering. And then after they'd hit, it'd get real emotional. And no, I didn't participate. I'm still alive. But this is what's cool. You could do some logical experiments here. The defensive backs were super fast, but they weren't very heavy. So they had a lot of kinetic energy, but they didn't have a lot of force behind it because they didn't have a lot of mass. The offensive linemen had a lot of this, but they were slower than Christmas. They were slower than a slow sack of slow. So imagine a big mountain coming at you, but very slow. Okay? You know, if a snowplow was moving slow, it can't break an egg. Think about it. It could push the egg, but it ain't going to break an egg. Now, it can move a building, but it can't break an egg. Who delivered the most powerful hits during this consistently? The linebackers, the tight ends, the fullbacks, some of the bigger running backs. Big, I'm not going to go extreme, big, fast, powerful. Okay, let me pull up that other graphic to show you a powerful graph about power. All right, so this is what I was trying to say. Here is the traditional force velocity curve. As your load goes down, your speed can go up. As your load goes up, your speed goes down. And look at where peak power lies. Peak power lies somewhere in the middle. Okay? Peak power lies somewhere in the middle. So the reason for me showing you this is that some of our movement strategies are going to be extremes. We're going to have movement strategies. We're going to have things that we do with our joints strategically when we need to move something super heavy and speed isn't a factor. I just got to move it. Or I have to be accurate in my application of my force onto something. And then we're going to have other movement strategies that are going to require our segments, mostly distal segments, hands, feet, to move super fast. But I can't handle large loads. What do I mean by that is, imagine taking a baseball like this one that I magically have here. If I said I'm going to give you $5 for every foot you throw this baseball, you're going to take a running start and you're going to sling it like a traditional thrower, right? But if instead of the baseball, I said, I'll give you $5 for every foot you throw this shot put, a heavy, think of for those of you that don't know what a shot put is, think about a cannonball. You will not have the same movement strategy because it has a heck of a lot more weight behind it. It has a lot more load behind it. There's a lot more resistance behind it. Man, I still want to get paid, but you're going to have to incorporate a different movement strategy because you can't make it go fast because it weighs so much. Okay? So this is really the breakdown of what's coming in the next part of my lecture. We have movement strategies for maximum speed, and they won't be very accurate because it's hard to go fast and be accurate. We're going to have movement strategies for maximum load or force application. Those are easy to be accurate, but we can't move them very fast. And then we're going to have movement strategies that incorporate power. These and these that are somehow kind of blended together in some kind of perfect marriage middle. You think some people love hot showers, some people like cold showers, but a majority of people love warm showers, right? Something in the middle. This bed's too hard, this bed's too soft, this bed is just right. Powerful movement strategies, okay? All right, let's get to it. Let me pull up the movement strategies on the board. All right, let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, guys, so this is on page 3. The first movement strategy we're going to give you on the extreme is the slow but strong and accurate, and that is simultaneous movement strategies. Okay, the first one is simultaneous movement strategies. Now, simultaneous movement strategies is what it sounds like. It's multiple joint motions moving at the same time for the advantage of load, force, and accuracy at the expense of speed. Examples of simultaneous movement strategies are elbows and shoulders moving at the same time, like a bench press would be simultaneous. You're trying to give load and you're trying to give it accurately. You're trying to push the bar in the exact opposite direction of gravity because any force that's not in that direction is wasted force. Okay? Now, can you do simultaneous motions against less loads? Of course you can, but you still have the element of accuracy. So what I mean by that is, imagine if I wanted to reach forward and grab something, okay? Reach forward and grab the ball. I want to incorporate elbows and shoulders moving at the same time so that my elbow motion can cancel out rotationally my shoulder motion, and they can work together to summate their linear motion. In other words, when my arm is like this, my elbow, when my elbow extends, my hand goes forward, but it's going to go forward only enough, it's going to get out of the way of the ball. Okay, there's the ball. Elbow extend. Oh man, that's not going towards the ball. My hand's going forward, but it's going forward and away. Okay, shoulder, your turn. Go get the ball. Shoulder's like, I'm going to make your hand go forward. Oh, but I'm rotating the other way, and I'm taking your hand out of the way. Elbows and shoulders say, whoa, what if we worked at the same time? What if we had simultaneous motion? So that way, elbow, as you're moving forward but away to my right, I'm going to move you forward and away to my left, and we can work together to translate your hand forward to accurately grab the ball. Okay? That's simultaneous motion. So reaching forward is actually this plus this done at the same time, or this plus this done at the same time for this. The illusions, just like we talked about in 310, is most people follow the hand and doesn't see what's happening here and here. Right? They just follow the hand. Like in football, you just follow the ball and you don't see the intricate blocks and tasks that the other players are doing. Or in soccer, you're just following the ball. Like when I watch soccer, just follow the ball. I don't really understand all the things happening on the other side of the ball. Same concept, okay? So simultaneous motion, human movement strategy, multiple joint motion occurring at the same time, maximum force or optimal accuracy. So you don't have to be straining all your might for simultaneous motion, but if you were trying to move something that was very, very hard, that had a high load, you're going to incorporate a simultaneous movement strategy. Think about a car that ran out of gas that you're trying to push, right? You're behind the car and you're pushing. You want to be strong and you want to be accurate. So you're going to push with all of your upper body and all of your lower body, all pushing at the same time. I know muscles don't push, they pull, but muscles pull on bones, which then push on things. Bones can push through the muscles pull. 310 stuff. So simultaneous movement strategy, accuracy, and force at the expense of power. Now, at the expense of speed. Now, one of the reasons you get the expense of speed is you run out of what I call the acceleration road. If an athlete wants to reach maximum speed running, they need enough land to build up that speed. If a car is trying to build up maximum speed, that car needs enough road to build up that speed. Same thing with joints. Think about a pitcher, how long that pitcher takes to build up maximum speed of their hands. When you do simultaneous motion, you have motion at two joints all at the same time. So you reach the end of your road sooner when you shoot all your bullets at once, as a metaphor, okay? So in simultaneous motion, one of the reasons you sacrifice speed is because all those joint motions are happening at the same time and they're not done in sequence, which is the next one coming up, sequenced motion. Okay, all right. I have some different examples on the simultaneous motion. Like in boxing, one of the reasons the jab is the most accurate punch thrown is because it's simultaneous. There's no sequence involved of other joint motions. It's literally just elbows and shoulders to be accurate with your delivery of your hit. All right, let's look at the other end of the graph, right? Speed. When you have movement strategies that need speed, why would you need speed? Well, our ancestors needed speed to be able to throw things, kill things, defend things, sling things. when we're trying to generate now, it's not so much of, well, I mean, I'm sure in some places in the world they still incorporate fast movement for survival. But for us, a lot of our sequence movement in how we apply it is with sport. So sequenced motion is multiple joint motions, not done at the same time, but done in sequence. The easiest way for me to explain this is snapping somebody with a towel. You know, you've all done it. Usually it's to a friend, relative, and one time, and most of the time with my wife when I'm messing around with her, I don't really mean to pop her, and that's when I actually pop her. I'm like, I'm gonna get you. Oh gosh, that really worked. Think about it. If you're trying to pop someone with a towel, the only part of that towel that really matters is the tip, the distal tip. What's happening is when the towel snaps or a whip snaps, the tip of that whip or towel is moving faster than sound. That's a sonic boom. How do you get the end of a towel or whip to go faster than sound? I can't take the towel and throw it simultaneously, but I can do it sequentially, because as you go to pop that towel, as it moves, every part of that towel gets a little faster and faster and faster and faster, because you increase the road that it has to speed up. In other words, if I throw the towel all at once, I didn't have a lot of time to speed up the tip of the towel. But if I take the towel and whip it, every piece of that towel is constantly getting faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until the tip is going significantly fast. Same thing with throwing a baseball. It's like throwing a towel. It's sequenced. I'm going to push off. I'm going to speed the ball up because of lower extremity motion. Right? When I push off, I'm going to have some hip abduction. That made the ball speed up, not significantly. I could still see the ball. Do you know when the ball speeds up significantly is when you can't see the ball anymore? Watch Major League Baseball tonight. You're going to see those pitchers in real time. You see the ball, you see the ball, you see the ball, you see the ball, and then all of a sudden you don't see the ball. It's a blur. Our eyes can't process that kind of frames per second. But the point is, I speed the ball up when I push off. I speed the ball up when I twist. Look, speed the ball up. I speed the ball up when I twist my pelvis. I speed the ball up when I twist my trunk. I speed the ball up when I protract my scapula. And this is where it really gets crazy. I speed the ball up when I externally rotate. Now I'm old, shoulder problems. I can't catapult like I used to. But basically what happens in pitchers and throwers is that they can take their shoulder, and Dr. Campbell can't really bring his catapult back anymore. So my baseball, oh God. So I'm only going to throw the ball 70 miles an hour tops at my age and my lack of range of motion. But the pros can take their shoulder and externally rotate the heck out of it, and then woof, like a catapult. And that's where the speed really goes up. It's no different than if you were at a table with your brother, sister, cousin, and you wanted to sling like a piece of corn or pea across the table. You take that piece of corn in your spoon. You don't want to cock it back a little bit. You want to cock it back a lot to sling it. Same concept. You externally rotate to cock back, and then and you sling it. Okay, that takes road. Now, why is it that you can do this for speed, but why is it that you don't have accuracy? And why do we not need, why does the load affect our sequence motion? Because if you do motions in sequence one at a time, every joint, and thus all the muscles at that joint, have to be able to handle the load independently. When I had simultaneous motion, my elbow muscles and my shoulder muscles and my scapular muscles could all work together. They can all use that load together. You have multiple people pushing on the coil at the same time, helping out. When you do joint motions one at a time, every single joint must be able to handle that load independently. So by the time you get to your shoulder and that external rotation, those shoulder internal rotators need to be able to handle all of that load at the same time. That's why if you replaced the baseball with a shot put, there's no way your internal rotators and the dynamics of your bones and ligaments can handle externally rotating with that amount of force. Load velocity. More load is not going to move it as fast. Okay? That's why people can throw javelins 300 feet, but if you replaced a very light javelin with a heavy javelin, they're not going to throw it 300 feet. Okay? So the trade-offs here: sequenced motion, speed of distal segments, not just the hands to feet, field goal kickers and people kicking off and kicking things, sequenced motion. When you run up to the ball, that creates velocity of your foot. Then you plant, then you pelvic girdle rotate, then you flex your hip, then you extend your knee. You do all those things in sequence. Okay? Now, sequenced, true sequence motion, like for the pros, that's a learned effect. It's hard to do things fast because of the because of the trade-off of accuracy. Okay, it's hard to be fast and accurate. That's why Major League Baseball pitchers that throw 95, or throw 88, it doesn't matter. It's hard to be accurate. That doesn't mean you can't be accurate. It means it's hard. I've seen pitchers. I'm a Mets fan, man. I've lived through torture my whole life. Bases loaded, full count. The pitcher just needs to throw a strike. Bottom of the ninth, if he walks him, the game's over. Ball four. Because it's hard to be sequenced and be accurate. And one of the reasons is because all of these, I'll give you an analogy. Do y'all remember the telephone game when you guys were kids, where you'd whisper something in one person's ear in the class and then they would repeat it, and the story might be Jane rode a bicycle to the store, and by the time it got to the end of the class, it was Bobby bought a polar bear at Target. It's very similar. When you rely on all of your joints to work in sequence, any error that any one of those joints did, maybe the muscles recruited too soon, maybe they recruited too late, maybe you overly rotated, maybe you, all of that error is amplified down the chain. So if I didn't abduct perfectly, that imperfection is going to be amplified to all the things down the chain. In addition, because we have more pure rotation when we're doing sequence work, there's no cancellation for translation of distal segments. The distal segment is now spinning. Imagine, again, this is just layman's terms. If the ball is coming here, if I release it just a little bit too soon, that error is going to amplify and that ball is going to sail over here. If I release it just a little too late, that error is going to amplify. I almost have to release it perfect for it to go to the catcher's mitt. So the rate of error, the window of error is much smaller. You could see this at any high school game. No offense if some high schools have good kickers, but growing up, we didn't have soccer in Delcom. So our extra points were like a circus. Dun, 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 dun. It's hard for our people to kick extra points because we never played soccer. So, we go and kick the ball and ball's going all over the place because it's hard to make something move fast and get it exactly where you want to get it. Okay. All right. Let me get to introduction of the power and we'll wrap it up. All right, powerful movement strategies need to incorporate simultaneous, because that's where you're going to get the strength part, and sequence, that's where you're going to get the speed part. So imagine you having two sets of simultaneous potential levers. I have an upper extremity set, and then I have a lower extremity set. So you think about someone like doing a squat. Knees and hips and ankles moving at the same time, right? So to make things super easy, I'm just going to say knees and hips on the bottom part, elbows and shoulders on the top part. Yes, I know some scapula, some other stuff, but just to make it simple, knees and elbows, shoulders, knees and hips, elbows and shoulders. What if the task was, instead of a baseball, as far as you can, $5 for every foot, pure sequenced. A super duper heavy, let's say a 200-pound weight ball. I'm lucky if I could just move it. It might be more pure simultaneous. Everything moving at the same time just to get that sucker up. But what if it's like a weighted medicine ball? Something that's obviously heavier than a baseball, but something that's not too heavy that I could barely move it. So imagine if the goal was to throw the weighted medicine ball as far as you can for money. What you are going to do, most likely, is not start with your upper extremity. You're going to start with the lower extremity. And you're going to flex the knees and flex the hips to prep it. You're going to change your direction and then speed that medicine ball up with knee extension and hip extension. Think about it. When you come up, you gave the ball speed because you gave it road to speed up. Once you've sped it up as much as you can with your lower extremity, you're going to continue to speed it up with your upper extremity to throw that ball. 2 sets of simultaneous motions. A lower extremity set and an upper extremity set. 2 sets of simultaneous motions, strength, done in sequence, speed. And the combination of strength and speed is power. So powerful movements tend to have some of both. Sprinting is a powerful movement strategy. Why? Because once you, now starting from the blocks might be more strength because you got to get your mass moving. But once you're in stride, there is an element of both. Well, what's the sequence? Right, then left, then right. You have a sequence of motions, and things done in sequence can be done to optimize speed. This motion, then that motion, then this motion, then that motion. You can't see my knees, but my knees are going up and down. Well, where's the simultaneous motion? The right hand, my right arm, and my left leg. Well, how is that force and accuracy? Well, the accuracy comes because my right arm doing this wants to rotate my body this way. But I cancel that out by my left leg doing this, which wants to take my body that way. So my left leg and my right arm cancel each other out so that I can go straight. That's accurate. Because if I'm trying to run 40 yards, I want to do it. I want to run 40 yards. I don't want to run 41 yards. I don't want 42. I want to be accurate. And the force is if I bring my arm up and my leg up at the same time, bringing my arm and leg up creates a reaction force on my foot down. So I have more force on the ground. That's why when people jump, they swing their arms up in the air because the reaction to this is more push on the ground. Some Newton stuff. We're going to get to that. So sprinting is very powerful because it has a combination of joint motions that are done at the same time and joint motions done in sequence. Swimming, to me, is a great example of all the different types of movement strategies. You think about the breaststroke. That's a simultaneous movement strategy. If somebody was trying to tug a boat in the water, they wouldn't freestyle because they need more force to tug the boat. They're going to do more breaststroke, simultaneous movement strategy, force and accuracy, and it's going to be slow. What are the fastest strokes? Freestyle, done in sequence. Backstroke, done in sequence. Those are the faster strokes. Butterfly, breast, those are the slower strokes because of simultaneous motion. Okay? All right, so those are the movement strategies. For the test, literally, it's the stuff you got to know. Okay? What are the different types? What are the advantages of the different types? On Friday, or I might do a supplemental video of some examples of some simultaneous and sequence motion. And we're going to apply it to exercise and stuff. And So I hope this video helped, and as always, hit me up if you guys have any questions. Bye.